When people think of graphic design, they often think of beautiful posters, clean brand identities, and unique imagery for websites. But in reality, graphic design is pretty much everywhere, even in your pocket. I recently found out that my local library is holding a competition to design their next adult library card. And so I thought it would be fun to make a little video to show how I would use the history and culture of my city to design a library card that any local would be proud of. Look guys, I know that a library card probably isn't the most fun thing to design, but I promise that I'll make it fun for you, right? Right. Now, to preface this video before we start designing, I live in a city in the northeast of England called Newcastle upon Tyne, home of the Geordies. Apparently, we have one of the most difficult accents to understand in the whole of the UK. Hello, man. I don't know about that, like, you're just being proper raj at this point. We're probably best known for our killer nightlife, our Premier League football team Newcastle United, and being home of the king of pastries, the Greggs sausage roll. If you dive a bit deeper though, Newcastle is also known for having 7 iconic bridges that cross the River Tyne, with the most famous bridge being the Tyne Bridge built in 1928. We also have the Angel of the North, our timeless landmark that was built in 1998. On top of this, we also have deep industrial heritage, specifically in shipbuilding and coal mining. So I'm going to be using all of these things and more to inspire me in my design process. Let's go! Okay guys, so we are in Illustrator and I've just made sure I've got the canvas here, which is 85mm by 55mm because that's the size of the library card. And if we just move over here, I've done a little mood board of the types of things you can find in Newcastle. So we've got the Tyne Bridge here, we've got the industrial background of the shipbuilding, we've got Gray's Monument here, which is a place where everyone kind of meets up with their friends in Newcastle. Oh, friend! The Angel of the North. We've also got the Millennium Bridge, which is another bridge in Newcastle. The club scene, I kind of want to include some silhouettes of people dancing, maybe throwing their hands up. Oh, party, yeah. And lastly, we've got Alan Shearer, one of the most famous footballers from Newcastle United. Sadly, he's retired now, but you can't have Newcastle without Alan Shearer, in my opinion.
He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before shearers. Not that Shearer.
Mainly what I'm going to try and take from this image is the black and white football strip because that is kind of unanimous with our football team. And of course we've got the Newcastle Libraries logo in the middle. Mainly just to be used as a little reference for the type of colours that I would like to include in the card. I'm not going to be so strict with the colour usage, but a little bit of pops of these kinds of colours will help just keep the brand identity of the library in line. So the big idea that I have is to have the landmarks dotted in the background with some silhouettes in the foreground, mainly of people dancing. And I'm not just going to place images of the landmarks in, I'm going to try and trace over them in more of a hand-drawn style, just so that it maybe feels a bit more personal and a bit more like someone's crafted it themselves, which they will have because I'm going to show you how I do it. So first up, I just want to kind of take the likeness of the Tyne Bridge here. I'm going to make that a little bit translucent, so let's say 50%. That way I can get, actually, no, let's do 30%. That way I can get an idea of what I'm tracing over without the image itself getting in the way. So if I just grab the pencil tool here and roughly go over the arch of the bridge like this, we can then hold Alt and smooth that off. And already we've got a nice smooth arch. Maybe I'll just stretch it out just a little bit. And there we go. And we'll give it the iconic Tyne Bridge green color.
You're green.
And I'm just adjusting the stroke here so that it's roughly the same size as the top part of the bridge. And then I want to copy that and paste it in place. And then I want to go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Do I though? That is the question. So if we go maybe offset 0.75mm, let's see how that works. So you can see we've got that bridge shape already. If we click in the middle here for the middle stroke and then make that 1 point, we can just make that a bit thinner, which mimics the zigzag structure between the frame. And then if we go to Effect, Distort and Transform Zigzag, then we can play around with these settings here so that the zigzag touches the outer frame but doesn't go past it. Let's adjust these ridges here to say about 18. 18 looks good. So we can see that there's more ridges on this side than there is on that side. So I'm just going to simplify the path and make sure that the ridges are even on both sides. So to do that, we'll go to Object, Path, and then Simplify. And then we'll just adjust this here to make sure that the ridges are even on each side, which looks to be just about here. and then move this up ever so slightly. I've duplicated it. I'm stupid.
I'm a dumbass.
And we'll adjust the ridges per segment until it looks just about right. So I've went with 30 here. That looks good enough to me. So we'll hit OK. And then we've got the base of the Time Bridge. For the buildings on the end here, I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool and make some rectangles. And I'm just going to nudge them in a bit, just so that the underside of the bridge here actually connects to the building and it's not left floating in midair. So I'll duplicate that to the other side, just like that. And I'm going to group the actual bridge parts up. So select both of them and hit Ctrl G to group them. And then I'm going to select all of the items, click on the bridge to highlight it. And then I'm just going to hit horizontally distribute center here, just to make sure that everything is centrally aligned. And then I'm just going to make the roadway of the bridge just by grabbing the pen tool and holding shift to make a straight horizontal line, clicking on the other side. And then we've got the roadway. Just thicken that up ever so slightly to 2. And there we have it.
Nice.
And then to make these supports at the bottom, I'm just going to get the rectangle tool again, and then use the eyedropper tool to select the same style as the buildings. Maybe also just get rid of the stroke, see if that looks any better. Let's see. Does it look better? I'm not sure. I think it does. Maybe if we just move that to the back there, and then we'll just duplicate these along by holding Alt and clicking and dragging. And then to make these decorative structures under the bridge, I'm just going to grab the ellipse tool and make a circle. Then with the scissors tool, I'm just going to snip off these anchor points here on the side. So we're left with a semicircle that then needs to be joined up with the pen tool to complete the path. And I'm just going to swap the stroke and fill around. Zoom in here just to get a better look, and then we're just going to align the semicircle with the actual semicircle structure in the picture, which seems to have worked quite well, but then we also need the vertical supports in the structure as well. So we'll get the pen tool, just making a horizontal line for the support beams, and then we'll go to the stroke width and bump that down a bit, just so it roughly matches the actual width of the support beams in the picture. So I think we'll go for about 0.5, and then we'll duplicate these over one by one. Next, I'm going to click on each of these horizontal lines to make sure they are selected, and hit Ctrl G on my keyboard to group them up, and then select the semicircle structure. Click on the semicircle structure once they're all selected to make it the key for the alignment, and then horizontally align it to the center so that we've got something like this. And then we'll group those elements up together as well, so now both the semicircle structure and the support beams are one object. And then we can start duplicating them over by holding Alt and dragging, as you by now know. And then I'll just select all of them and make sure that those go to the back of everything. So if you take a look over on this side, we can see that the structure underneath doesn't quite reach the building, but over on this side, it does. So I'm just going to make a few alignment tweaks and then I'll be right back. So with those alignment tweaks finished, the next thing we have to do is make the supports for the top half of the bridge. So that one's easy. We just grab the pen tool and we click and click again. With the supports done, the final thing I have to do here is make them green. Nice, and it is looking quite good actually.
It is fantastic!
I still need to do the top half of the semicircle structure here, so I'll get the pen tool once again, and then I'll click on one side and drag it all the way over to here. Click again to make a line. Then we will go to the stroke, make it that creamy color, up it to maybe 2. No, I would say 1. Up it to 1, move it down ever so slightly, pull it out just so that it connects to the building here and this edge. And I think honestly we've got a winner here, wouldn't you agree? Look at that beautiful time bridge.
Child. Anyway, so
And the last thing that I would like to do is just expand the appearance of the entire artwork and use the shape builder tool just to clean up all of the rough edges. So I'll do that now and I'll see you in a minute. So I've just cleaned this up and it's looking a lot more like the time bridge now. I think the only thing it needs is a bit of windows on each of the buildings on either side. So let's grab the rectangle tool and start doing little squares on each of the buildings on the side. Let's go with this mocha brown color. So we'll just duplicate these just to give it a bit more look of a building rather than just a rectangle. And And I might also just slightly change the shape of some of these just to give it some more variety. Now it's starting to look more like a brick wall rather than an actual building, but I think it doesn't really matter as long as there's more detail on these to make it stand out rather than it just looking like a plain rectangle. And I'm not really worried about what colours I'm using at the minute. I'm just more worried about the shape and the structure of what I'm designing, so when it's completely finished, I'll go back and do a pass on every single colour. And would you look at that, we've got a beautiful time bridge literally done just by tracing over an image of the bridge itself.
Beautiful.
While also just using a few technical tricks here and there. And then I think next we're going to try and design the Angel of the North. So what I'm thinking of doing is just grabbing the rectangle tool and just making one rectangle, changing this to a more appropriate colour for the angel, something like this orangish brown here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the direct selection tool here and just select the anchor points and move them into the place where the wings would be. So move this one down here towards this, and the top one up here down towards the top of the wing. We'll move this one down here, this one along here, this one to the bottom, and this one to the left. So we'll start at the top near the head, down the legs, over the knees, and down to the feet, going round roughly round the angel, back to the neck, and then to the head. Now obviously that path didn't turn out brilliant, so I'm just going to go through and adjust it. Let's make the head more of a head shape here. Beautiful, beautiful. And now let's give the angel the peachy bump that it so desperately deserves.
Yeah, boy.
There we go, looking hot, looking hot. This angel is getting sexy.
Look how she ate that.
Let's do the same thing with the legs, making sure that they're nice and thick. Adjusting this again slightly. And then moving down onto the feet. Oh, I really messed up the feet here. I'm not very good with the pencil tool. I've got a shaky hand. But luckily, I can just smooth things out if I need to, like so. Why is it not joining up? This is the bane of my life. There we go. There we go. There we go. Smooth it all out. There we go. And now that we've got a much cleaner path, we can just give it a stroke. Change the color to, let's say, a bright orange so we can see it in contrast with the wings. Definitely a better outline than what I started with. Now, if we bring the picture to the front, you can see that the angel has these kind of like line structures on its wings and also on its body. So we're going to replicate those. They've got these little bits at the top that go over and wrap around to the other side of the wing. So to do that, I'm going to use the pencil tool. Yet again, I love the pencil tool. And we're just going to start with this one on the left here. So if I just go up and then wrap that round like that. Maybe this can come down here, this path. Let's see. Then we'll adjust it just so it lines up. Yeah, I think that path's good. We make that brown color and then pull the stroke down ever so slightly. Let's do the same for the bottom. Give it a little curl. Oh, that was a bit too much. Let's try again. There we go. That's a lot better than it was. So I'm hoping that I can just duplicate these across and just pull it down to match the perspective. And yeah, this seems to be working. It's always nice when things work out in Illustrator for the first time, because Lord knows that is not always the case.
No, it's true. It's true.
I'm just trying to make sure that there's no little white gaps up here between the wing and the accent, just so that when I go to clean it up later, there won't be any white space between the accent and the wing. So these accents that I'm doing now seem to have a slight bend in them, but I'm actually just not too worried because it's only going on a library card and it doesn't need to have the extreme level of detail that the angel does in real life. We just need to keep it simple enough so that the design can be enjoyed, but also just have enough detail so that the angel itself is recognizable. I'm just going to do the horizontal accents with the pen tool because they're straight, so it's simple. So we'll go from here all the way up to the chest, and again from the bottom all the way up to the chest. Repeating that on the same side here for the bottom and for the top. Right guys, so I've just made some minor adjustments here. I've done the vertical and horizontal decorations and also just filled the middle part in on the angel, and it's looking really good honestly. But I'm going to do a little bit of a cleanup and then I'll see you after that. So we're back. I've just kind of neatened up the angel here. I cut off the little hooks that were going around just to give it a straight edge, just making it look nice and neat. And then I expanded the stroke and fill on the body of the angel as well, just so that they're separate bits and they can scale correctly when we come to lay out all of the different artworks on the card. I also took the time off camera to design the Millennium Bridge, which is another landmark in Newcastle, and also Grey's Monument. And I also took some time to trace around the statue portion of Grey's Monument, just so that it's more recognisable to the people of Newcastle, as if I did a bit of a poorer job, it might have ended up looking like the Statue of Liberty, which is not what we want.
Unacceptable!
And just a reminder, I am in Illustrator, so these are all SVGs, which means that I'll not lose any fidelity when it comes to arranging the pieces later. Now for the foreground elements, I want something like this. Obviously I've just lowered the opacity of the image here, but I want silhouettes of people partying, throwing their hands up, having a good time.
Oh, party, yeah.
With the 4 landmarks that I've designed here just being in the background of the people, giving the design a little bit of depth. So I've just been on Google and I've found a couple of images of some silhouettes of people dancing. They're looking very lively, honestly. I'm quite excited to see how this all turns out. So for this part of the process, I'm going to use image trace. So let's do that right now. And then we're going to expand the traced image and ungroup it to get rid of the white background. And then we can take the silhouette and arrange them along the bottom of the card here, resizing them just to make sure they're all somewhat evenly equal in height. So I've arranged the silhouettes on the bottom of the card and it's looking absolutely fantastic. I think the next move is to arrange the landmarks in the background. So we'll do that together. So I know for a fact that I definitely want the Angel of the North to sit probably on an angle somewhere around here, because then it would frame the center. So we'll get the time bridge as well. Make that bigger. Maybe pull this up ever so slightly. Yes. Actually, no. Let's go back. Let's just make this bigger. And then we'll center align it so that it's in the middle of the card. And then let's get the Millennium Bridge. Maybe we can have that in the corner here. Maybe behind the time bridge. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I honestly don't think the Millennium Bridge is going to work here, honestly. Let's not delete it. Let's move it back off the canvas. And I think I'll just try the monument. And then we'll increase the size of him like exponentially.
Domain expansion.
Make him absolutely massive. Maybe shrink him a little bit. Bring him up. No, he's not working there either. Maybe the time bridge needs to be adjusted again. So we're back and I've finally got a layout that I'm happy with here. I've just got it in trim view so you can see it without the clutter around the canvas. But I've got the Angel of the North on the right, the entire bridge spanning the entire card, and then I've got Grey's Monument on the left with the Millennium Bridge backing it, which gives it that balance that the Angel of the North also provides on the right. So the next step that I want to do is draw a subtle outline around all of the background elements. So I'm just going to grab the pen tool and go somewhat roughly around all of these bits. Not too focused on getting the path as neat as possible because I can then adjust it later. So coming down now, round the booty,
Yeah, boy.
down past the legs, and then I'll make this outline come all the way down and round the outer edge of the canvas, joining it back up right where I started, just here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the background elements, group them up, copy them, and then we'll go to the outline I just made and we will go to draw inside here, right click, paste, and paste in place. That way they're actually inside the outline and not on the canvas itself. So if I send them to the back, get the ones that are outside the outline and delete them. Lovely. And then I've got a nice checkered paper texture here. I got checkered paper because I thought of the industrial background of Newcastle. And of course, with the shipbuilding, they're probably drawing different types of diagrams and stuff like that. So I thought this would be a nice background layer to the outline that I just drawn. So if we select the paper texture, copy it, go back inside of the outline, paste the texture in, make sure it covers the entire page like so, and then send that to the back. And then we've got a lovely paper texture that serves as the background to the landmarks. So if we select the actual path and make the stroke non-existent, and then we're just going to make some adjustments to the paper texture itself. So I'm back within the outline and I'm just going to get a rectangle and make sure that this covers the entire canvas. Give it a white fill, pure white as such. And then if we just come to the opacity panel and lower that down, let's say to about 40, and then we'll make sure that's behind the landmarks, but in front of the paper texture. So it just lightens up the paper texture a bit, making sure that it's not too dark. Give it a bit of a lighten, bring it up to, say, around 65. 65 looks good to me. Yeah.
See nice.
And now I'm going to get another texture just for the furthest layer in the background as well. So we have another grittier texture in the background now, and I'm just going to make some slight adjustments, bringing that opacity down ever so slightly to about 60. And then I want to get the rectangle tool, put that all the way in the background, and then give this a slightly lighter grey color. So if we go to like white, you can then play around with this. And I think I'll go about there. So you can see the texture in the background is blended quite nicely with the color, making it ever so slightly lighter. Now I also want the bottom half of the landmark layer to fade out onto the background, because down here currently it's a bit busy and a bit messy. So we actually need the gradient on top of the texture, and then in the transparency panel we need to hit make mask. And then we've got a lovely blend from the paper to the texture in the background. But let's edit the mask ever so slightly. So we've got the mask selected here in the transparency panel, and I'm just going to go back to gradients, and I'm just going to play around to see where I can get the best type of gradient. So I kind of want the legs of the bridge to totally disappear and blend into the background. So let's try that and move these around, move that up to about here, I would say. And then we've got like a nice blend between the characters in the foreground and the landmarks in the background. So out of trim view now, we can see that the characters in the foreground kind of don't blend well with the color of the background. So my thought was to incorporate some of the colors in the Newcastle Library logo here with the silhouettes. And I think I'm just going to adjust the gradient slightly so that there's more of the landmarks in the background so that the black silhouettes stand out. So previously it was somewhat like this, so the silhouettes don't blend very well. But if we bring this handle down and bring the black down here, we can get a very slight gradient on the bottom while having the silhouettes actually just stand out even more. So I'm actually just going to scrap that idea and just line the bottom with the colors from the library cards. So we've got the pink, teal, blue, another blue, green, yellow, pink, the purple, and the pale blue here. And then it also just looks like people are dancing on a dance floor, which is quite synonymous with Newcastle because we've got amazing nightlife. So one small adjustment I want to make is just editing the outline for this path here. We'll click all the way in so that we've selected the path. And then if we go to Effect, Distort and Transform, Roughen, fiddle around with these options. So I want absolute size. I'm going to go 1 pixel, and then the detail we can have all the way to 100. We can see that the paper texture has a bit of a roughen effect around all the edges, just giving it that bit more of an identity. Now the last thing I want to do is put the logo onto the card. I can't find a high quality PNG of the Newcastle Library's logo, so I'm just going to use this image, but I'm going to go with the pen tool and do like a rough circle around it. That was the most terrible circle I've ever drawn in my life. Let's try that again. Just going round like a rough rounded rectangle shape. Lovely. And then we'll smooth that out, hold Alt and drag along until we get something like this. And then we'll do the same effect as we did with the paper. So then we'll go to absolute size, 1 pixel, and move the detail all the way up to 100. And there, very cute.
Yeah, get into it.
Now, I'm just going to go away and make some small final adjustments to the design, and I'll show you what I come up with at the end. So guys, I am finally back and I've made the adjustments that I said I was going to. I've just added some extra details to the monument here. I've given him some eyes, I've given him the details of his arms and some clothing. And then for some of the silhouettes in the front, I've given them the Newcastle United football top, which is this lovely black and white stripe pattern here. And then some other adjustments I made was just tweaking the outline that went around the landmarks, and also just widened the outline here so that it covered this side of the card. I just believe that gave it a bit more balance. So guys, with the card finished, we've got many elements of Newcastle in here, including 4 landmarks: the Tyne Bridge, the Angel of the North, the Grays Monument, and the Millennium Bridge. We've got a nod to our football team with Newcastle United shirts on some of the silhouettes in the front. and to tie in the logo and our nightlife culture. We've got a border on the bottom which mimics a dance floor but also ties in the colours to the Newcastle Library's logo. So I'm going to submit this library card and I will let you guys know if I win the competition. Thank you for watching the design process though, and I hope you learned a thing or two along the way. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this week's video. If you enjoyed what you watched guys, please make sure to like, share, comment and subscribe. I would appreciate it so much. And if you want to support me just that little bit extra, you can buy me a coffee on Ko-Fi, link in the description. And with that guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye!